Welcome, everyone. We're live, and you're checking out Glitch 2600's Geek Out. What's a Geek Out? Geek Out is where we answer your live Q&A questions. I figured, and we normally plan these, but I had a little bit of time, a very short amount of time. We don't have a whole lot between soccer games and all that, but I thought I would say hi, let you know we're still alive here. And getting ready to do these, I've been doing a Lita challenge. So Lita is just short for live every day in August. The cool thing is you can also do it in April, and it ends in A. Otherwise, it becomes a Lido, live every day in October, or different ones like that. LEDs doesn't quite work as well, but maybe I'll do it live every day in September. But I haven't been doing that live out here. In fact, it's a possibility we could do that. It's an option, but we don't right now. But to answer your question, who am I? You might be new here. And if so, welcome. And if you're catching this on the replay, which I assume you probably are, there's a good chance you're not on the page and checking this out. Who am I? Well, we'll just point down here, over there. I'm Glitch, aka Brian, and I'm your host to answer all of those geek, tech, photography, technology, I already said that, all those cool questions, and live on the air. And if we are not live on the air, you can still post questions. You just put Q and then type out your question, and I will get it even after the show. Otherwise, if you're on our Facebook page, which maybe if I didn't block that, you'd be able to find, which is Glitch 2600 on Facebook, or you can find us on YouTube. We'll go and show you the handy dandy QR code where you can subscribe to us on YouTube. Just hover your camera phone over that, or go to the URL link down here. It's really hard to remember, live.glitch2600.com/YouTube. If you do that, and you can follow us on Facebook at Glitch2600, then you can be notified when we are going live, and then you'll be in the know and catch it. But you can also message us through that page. Either of those two sources. We're working on an email and all that, where you can just ask those questions. And if you want to be anonymous, just let us know. And that's not a problem. We'll still answer your questions, and we'll just come back to it after. So what are we going to talk about today if we're not talking about, if we're not doing live Q&A, if we don't have any lives because this wasn't planned? Well, there is a plethora of things we can talk about. The cool thing about technology is there is stuff everywhere, and we can talk about photography, and we can talk about computers. But one of the things that came up, if you didn't know about it and didn't hear about it, there was a big hurricane that came through the Midwest called Derico, which caused mass devastation in certain areas. I didn't have a ton of damage in mine. Around me there was lots of power outage, but I lucked out. It's like it just hovered around my house, which might be a weird omen. But other places around Iowa, like Cedar Rapids, got a lot of damage. And we have friends there that their businesses had to close, and they're still kind of getting out of that. And it was kind of a freak thing. We looked out the window, and where it was nice, all of a sudden, just pouring and super, super huge wind gusts. The neighbor behind me, their fence pretty much blew into my yard. And that was kind of crazy. Where you normally have days to prepare for a hurricane, if you're in places like Florida, we literally had like less than 30 minutes. So that came up with a lot of questions because people had to get generators and different things for that. And how does that affect technology? You have generators that you can plug directly into, and then you can always take a level of those generators and plug them into your house grid, which means it'll power your entire house. The nice thing about that is you don't have to run power cables everywhere and all that. The downside is they're a little bit more expensive. You got to get slightly bigger ones. You might need an electrician for that. Not might, you probably do, unless you have an electric or electrical background. If that's the case, you're probably not watching this part, or caring about it because there's no big deal. You already know this info. But there's different types. There's stuff that's called a pure sine wave inverter. And if you're in photography and you used Paul Buff alien bees or Einsteins, you know about pure sine, or you might know about pure sine because that's what their vagabond system runs off of. It makes pure power in that it doesn't dip as much. It conditions it. So a lot of times the generator power goes, and dips, dips. And that's not always good for electrical or electronic components. Your lights won't notice a difference. You might see a small flicker, thing like that, but your computer doesn't handle that so well. A printer will be okay. You know, small devices, the smaller the device, the less it'll see any issues. But a lot of times those inverters also, like photography lights, they charge up capacitors. So as they suck in all that power to a capacitor, they don't like when it has sudden dips. They want that kind of pure sine wave coming through. So there are generators that have that capability, or you can condition your line. And that's important because there's not much of a price difference when you're pricing out those generators. But, you know, keep in mind, you know, you might have to deal with a little less power, a few less things that can go on there for that higher capability. But the question was, can you plug computers and stuff into a generator? And the answer still is yes. But I'm going to make some caveats and some suggestions. So you can put it in there, but I would not leave them on and running all the time if they're on a generator. Where normally I'm an advocate, there's two schools of thought. Should you leave a computer up and running all the time, or should you shut it down? I'm kind of the opinion most of the time you should leave it up and running. There's lots of things in Windows and the Mac OS now that do better when they run longer. They build up caches and search caches that just do better the longer they run. I mean, if you run into an issue, you should shut it down. Not just reboot, but shut it down. Rebooting is fine, but we can get into the whole thing about how memory works and processors and hard drives we've talked about in the past, so you can go back to some older videos. But a reboot doesn't always pull power away from the system. It'll fix 99% of the stuff. A shutdown will normally fix the other. So shutting down is good at that point because it clears your memory, which is where everything loads. But having said that, where I'm normally an advocate of leaving the computer up and running, you know, causes less shock to the system every time you power it on, all of those, because some people say, well, the longer it runs, it's electrical in there, and that's causing damage. Well, every time you press the power button, that's also a huge surge of power, and I would argue, as a person who's worked with electrical and, you know, been a physics guy for a long time, that might be a more destructive force than a continuous form of power for something that was designed to run on power. But having said that, when you're running off a generator, one, you're pulling more. You're having that pull. And remember how I said if you don't have certain generators, that power doesn't stay equal. Well, that means the power supply on your computer has to do more. So I wouldn't suggest, if you're going to do that if you run off a generator, it's probably not time to bust out that League of Legends, you know, heavy gaming aspect. Maybe you don't need to break out the Oculus VR goggles, anything like that. But checking your email and surfing the internet, stuff like that, will be just fine. That won't cause a huge drain on the computer, or it won't cause the power supply to have to work at full power. But you know, it's okay for a little bit. It's just not the whole time. And that's why I also suggest shutting down, because that generator still has to work, and it has all the components then in your house. So what you should do at that point is maybe shut down the computers or devices when you're not using them, when you're running on that generator. If you have a laser printer, they have a tendency to pull a little bit more amps while printing. So if you don't need to print, shut it off. That'll help. The other thing you might find useful, and I'm a big advocate of this, is UPSs. And not the delivery service. I mean, they're fine. I might be more of a FedEx guy myself. I don't know. Feel free to endorse it. I'll back whichever one endorses me. But having said that, I'm a big fan of UPS, uninterruptible power supplies. And all that really means is it's a surge protector. I was going to look and see if I had one around me. Of course, I left it upstairs. It's a surge protector married with a battery to make a UPS. The bigger the UPS, the bigger the battery, and the longer stuff can run on it. The important thing about that, too, is that even stuff coming from the, you know, if you have Mid-American Energy, Allegiant Energy, Alliant, Cal Energy, if that's still around, all of those coming in from the outside has little brownouts in between. And a UPS provides more continuous power because it charges the batteries inside there, and then the batteries deliver power. You'll see sockets on there that are labeled UPS and power only. The ones that are power only they bypass the battery, and that's good for printers, like laser printers especially. You never hook up a laser printer to the battery part of it because it just drains. Remember how I said that originally is it provides a lot of drain. So it would just drain on that battery. But in those times where you get those little brownouts or in an electrical surge, what's going to handle that better? Your computer or a battery that's made to store power? I'm going to say a lightning strike. The battery that's made to charge and hold power will probably handle that and suck that away from your damaging your components way more. If you have an expensive TV, it doesn't hurt to put a small $30 UPS on there. We'll both condition the power, which gives you really good signal, which a little bit of noise in your power line can cause your video signal not to look quite as good. So for you video files out there, audio files, you hear static in the line, builds up static electricity. What do you think happens when you put a UPS on there? Aside from the fact that when you have a power outage, you can listen to music for at least a good 15, 30 minutes, depending on how big of a power supply or UPS you have, it provides that better, clearer sound for if you are a true audiophile. If you're like me and you just like to listen to music, it's probably not that important. It's more from a protection point of view. I don't mind if I have all my big high-end components in one area. I'll run them through it. If it's just a little mini boombox, it's okay. I don't think that needs to do it. My 7.2 surround sound, yeah, it doesn't hurt to have it on a UPS. But that's the same thing for your computer at home. It's good to put on there. Sometimes, as a network guy too, I will suggest sometimes putting your network stuff separately. So that way, since they're not that expensive, you can get UPSs down for $30. They don't power for very long. And a lot of times they'll have a little USB cord that comes off of it. And with the software, when it detects that there's a power outage, it goes, oh, hey, you're probably going to want to shut down your computer gracefully, and it'll send signals in there to try to go, okay, you'll run for about 5-10 minutes. It'll pop up a message on your screen. If you don't answer the message saying, no, don't shut down, it'll turn around and start shutting down your stuff to preserve the computer. But when you put it on network equipment, what's really great about it, network equipment doesn't pull much of a charge. So if you separate those, you can run your Wi-Fi as long as the box outside isn't like struck by lightning and destroyed. You can run your network and Wi-Fi for your cell phone, stuff like that, and charge your cell phone for a very long period of time. Instead of being 15, 30 minutes, if you have it on its own UPS, you can buy one that's rated for 30 minutes and probably get at least an hour or more, which could be useful to get certain news. They can go even longer for that. So depending on the device you have on there and you shut them down, the bigger the battery. If you have an hour-long one, it goes exponentially longer. So you can pay a little bit more for those. It's up to 100, 200. You can get ones for your home. There are generator systems that are UPS and generator together. They're rare. They cost a little bit more because they charge into a battery system and do storing, and then it works that way, and it provides a level of ground fault, everything for your entire house. And they get more. A lot of doomsday preppers know those ones because it is just a more powerful system and more, protected. But that's why I'm a big advocate of UPSs. They work great. They work great for businesses. I'll always tell people to run a register off those. Even if you've got, iPad ones, they have a built-in battery, a laptop. It provides clean power to your battery, your laptop's battery. So why not? It does mean over time they get worn out. They are batteries. They will sulfate. That means as the charge gets down, they lose their charge over time, for one. But then if you leave them discharged for too long, they'll turn around and sulfate inside, which means they won't be able to hold as much, depending on the style of battery. But they provide cleaner battery stuff, or you can replace those batteries. I've done it on one UPS I have. It used to be a $300 UPS. I bought it from CompUSA when they were going out of business and got it for like $80 or something like that. And it's a huge server one. But I've replaced that battery 2 or 3 times for $60. I just wire it out myself. But I'll also tell you, I bought that battery, I think 20 years ago, or that UPS. So it's more than paid for itself. In fact, the only reason why I'm debating now whether I upgrade because the battery's dead on it and I have a spare one or a spare UPS. I'm just debating on whether I want to get the battery for it, only because the color of my UPS. I like that my other ones are black and that one's white, and the newer technology on them, and a couple more sockets on them. I'm like, man, do I just want to get a newer one that has pretty LEDs on it that maybe beeps a little differently? That's the only reason. In fact, I might just throw a battery in there and give it to my business friends just so they have an extra one and then have the excuse to upgrade. Or I guess I could put a battery in there and sell it. Either way, that's one of my suggestions if you're going to do it. Now, a generator powering up a UPS, some would say that it will provide a constant drain on it. I think when it's up there all the way, it might, but if you're going to game, if you're going to do stuff like that, the nice thing is you can detach, well, don't detach right at that time, but you can detach the UPS from time to time and shut it down in between. And it just provides that little bit more protection for your computer when it's running off a generator. I wouldn't leave it up and running all the time while it's on there. And it'll beep. So you'll literally have to shut off the UPS at the same time, but it will provide more protection while you're running off of a generator. On top of that, if you did lose your generator, it would give you time to shut down your stuff gracefully and still have internet. So it's kind of like a double protection, and not much. Your generator provides power for an extended period of time. That's why businesses use them. But we still put UPSs on our servers. We still put our UPSs on essential workstations. And that's why. So that's what I'm going to tell you is if you're running your devices on there, obviously, if it's a power outage, not that you can't have a margarita, but maybe not run your blenders all the time and get sloshed continuously, because it's just going to be more gas you have to put in there. That's really the downside with the generator, is just how much gas you have to put in there and the longer you have to do it, and if you have access to go get gas and for how long they can run. Some are more efficient than others. So if you're having to drive out and go get it and then bring back gas for it, that could just be an issue. But having said that, that's the only reason why you want to lower that down, is the drain on it and all the devices in the house. If you're a pro gamer and that's your life and you're okay, you just turn off the lights, then put your gaming computer on, run in full power, and you're just playing in the dark and don't care about heat and all the other stuff that might need to run off that power, all the power to you. But if you're like the rest of us, most of the time, you'll just have to do without. Maybe play some Clash of Clans on your, or the mini version on your iPhone that can charge up and not use as much power, and puts your stuff that way. But think about that. In those situations, you can get a whole house generator. I will tell you, it is cheaper to get a whole house generator when you don't need a generator. So if you are in an area where that is possible, or you are worried about it, and let me tell you, you could pretty much lose power anywhere, then it might not hurt to think about investing. You can get a good generator at Costco for, I think, around $300 to $400 and get it installed way cheaper when they're not an emergency call, when you're not having to call on a weekend. So it might be worth investing in there, and it'll just increase the value of your house. Not much, but it will a little bit, because you now have these protective features in there. So think on that. If not, in the meantime, get a UPS for your computer. But remember, it doesn't just have to be for your computer, and you can separate those. You can have one just for your computer and little devices, and a second one for your network devices, or your network if you're running a mesh, different ones. And if anything, you're just going to charge them up. They're going to sit there clean, and then the day you do have a power outage, you at least have two sets of batteries that can also charge your iPhones or your Android phones or your other devices for a little bit of time if you needed to get that up so that you would have emergency power. So think on that, because you can always combine those into one UPS at one if you needed to, uninterruptible power supply. And you can get them as cheap as $30, or you can get the more expensive and bigger ones. It's how much money you want to put in there and how much disposable income you have. But think on that, and if you have more questions on it, we can do a whole bigger episode on it. Those bigger episodes we call Glitch Bites. Those are our big bite-sized meals of geekery and technology and questions, where we'll deep dive into one subject, where our bits are shorter, little 2-3 minute tips and tricks, which it's great if we actually had some on our page. We're working on them. I'm sorry, we've been extremely busy with different stuff. It's kids' soccer season, all that, but we do have a bunch planned. In fact, we'll slice and dice some of the stuff up. I'll make sure we have some coming up here very, very soon. Otherwise, if you just don't care and want to kick back in a time when, if you ever have a Derico in your scenario or your area, and all you want to do is say, forget about it, I'm just going to put my network equipment on a UPS and surf YouTube videos with my phone and not care about anything else and drink margaritas, then you should join us for our happy hours, which happen, and we review different beers and wine, cider, different things like that. Of course, we haven't reviewed a whole lot of wine and cider. Sometimes we talk cocktails, but you can come join us for that. And you'll catch those on the side. You'll see those GH squared happy hours. We'll be posting more Geek Outs. Just a reminder that you can subscribe to us on YouTube by going to live.glitch2600.com/YouTube. Also, I hope you guys like the new logo. We'll be working on some swag for that, and so maybe if people contact enough or enough shares, who knows, maybe we'll get something fun out of that. I'll also just remind you, you can follow us on Facebook if you're catching this on the other side, and because I'm working on my graphics, it'll remind right in front of my face to subscribe. Maybe I should put that somewhere else. I've been working on some other ones too. You guys want to see the other one? Like and subscribe. Yeah, and that one is weird size. Right in front of my face too. Because I obviously need to cover my face. But I hope you guys enjoyed. We plan on getting a lot more and increasing this value. I didn't go double camera angles and do all sorts of crazy stuff today because it didn't need it. We just had a good topic. But I got to go catch some soccer and get working on that. So it was great seeing you guys, and I hope to catch you more soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share to others that might need this tech geekery help, because human knowledge belongs to the people, and I want to help you. All right. Catch you soon.